Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's virtual write-in. If you don't know me, my name is Catherine. I am the communications manager at NaNoWriMo, and it is getting to be towards the end of July. We're in the last kind of few days, final home stretch here. So thank you everybody for joining today. I've been looking at the chat and seeing some folks have already been meeting their goals. So congratulations on that. I saw that Xavier met their goal. Sailor Star Knight says, "Thank goodness for write-ins. I'm so close to my goal and I need a push." So yay! Hopefully today it pushes you over that edge and helps you meet your camp goal. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so exciting. Yeah, if you wanna say in the chat where you're watching from today, or maybe how close you are to reaching your camp goal, or how writing this month is going for you, feel free to write that in the chat. Lois is watching from Sweden, so hi from Sweden. Leah is from Tampa. Awesome. Some more people who have already completed their goals. Lizzie said they did theirs today. Congratulations. Oh no, I forgot about Blobby. Oh, I feel so awful. I'm so sorry. For those of you who don't know, Blobby is this dinosaur stuffed animal that used to appear on every virtual write-in, and he's been living in the NaNoWriMo office, and the rest of us have been working from home. So occasionally he'll come over to my house to help me film videos and stuff. And last week I thought that he was in my house and he wasn't. And I said that I would get him for this week and I did not. I'm so sorry. Ah, that's my bad. Oh, I feel terrible about that. Okay, well, that just means that we're gonna have to have another virtual write-in at some point in the future where Blobby will be the guest star. So I apologize. That is my fault. I promise that Blobby will make an appearance sometime in the future. Oh man, that's egg on my face. You know, yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. Well, try not to let it ruin the virtual write-in for you. I apologize. I do. Blobby is a very busy dinosaur, and sometimes I feel like he has his own agenda, his own parties that he's throwing in the NaNoWriMo office when we're not there. But I do promise that he will make an appearance on a future virtual write-in. But if you haven't been to a virtual write-in before, this is your first time, I'm sorry, that was probably very confusing. But typically we use this next hour to do some writing prompts, some writing sprints, to really just spend some dedicated time working on your goal, getting words down, yeah, making sure that you get your time to write today. So I'll be providing 3 writing prompts throughout the course of the hour, usually from 5 to 10 minutes long. You can feel free to use them if you want, but you don't have to use them if it doesn't work for you or for where you are in your story. They can just be kind of like good jumping off points if you're stuck, if you want to try something new. So hopefully Blobby is meeting his camp goals wherever he is. I'm sure he is. He's always better at writing than the rest of us are. But all right, cool. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So yeah, let's get to writing today because it is getting towards the end of the month, and so I know some of you have already hit your goals, but some of you might be just trying to like cram in those last words, the last goals in these last few days here. So all right, so today today's theme was created by Ria, our programs fellow, who couldn't be here today unfortunately. But today's theme is all about immersive descriptions and sharp prose. So if you're at a point in your writing when you're kind of it can work either way if you're doing a first draft and you're just kind of getting the words out there, or if you're at a point when you're sort of like fine tuning it and discovering what really works well. We're gonna be focusing in on your descriptions today. So I led the LGBTQ Zoom meetup last week, and we talked a lot about kind of long flowing prose, or like writing a lot of descriptions as opposed to writing dialogue. Last week in the virtual write-in, or last time we focused on some dialogue. So we're going to be focusing on descriptions today. And the first sprint and prompt that we're going to try out here is focusing on figurative language. So if you're not familiar with it, or if you don't remember, I feel like this is one of the things maybe people learn in an English class and then forget, but it can be helpful to know some of the terms, but you also don't have to know the terms or to know the like theory of it to do it well in your writing, I feel. But I'll go over some of like the examples of figurative language before we get into it here. So usually figurative language most often refers to a simile, hyperbole, or a metaphor. So a simile is when you compare two unrelated things using the connecting words like or as. I've got some examples here. So for example, an example of a simile would be, it was so hot outside, I was sweating like I just run a marathon. So it's figurative because you haven't actually literally just run a marathon, but using that comparison, like, oh, you can picture how much you'd be sweating after running a marathon. I don't know, I've never run a marathon, but I imagine it would be pretty grueling. And that gives you an indication of kind of how hot the weather is. So that's an example of a simile, when you use like or as to connect two things. A hyperbole is an over exaggeration. So for example, like, the heat felt like 1,000 suns beaming straight down onto my head. It's like, okay, there aren't actually 1,000 suns there, but it gives the idea of how hot it is, you know. And then a metaphor is similar to a simile, but it doesn't use like or as. So for example, you could say, the heat turned me into an ice cream cone melting into a puddle of goo on the sidewalk. So in that instance, you're not saying it was like this or similar to this. You're just saying, oh, the heat turned me into this melting ice cream cone. And it's not actually literally didn't turn into a literal ice cream cone, but you get that feeling of like, oh my God, it's so hot that I'm melting. So anyway, those are some examples, and I'll put some of those examples in the chat, in the description too, if you want to refer back to that at any point. Oops. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I get everything sorted away here. Just putting it in the chat. Thanks for bearing with me. There we go. So those examples are all in the chat. And all of that to say, for our first sprint, we're just going to warm up with a 5-minute sprint. And the prompt is to use a simile, hyperbole, or metaphor in your sprint. And you can use more than one. You can use as many as you like. So I'll put that in the chat as well. And let's see, that's going to be 5 minutes. So let me just set my timer here. Getting everything ready. Okay, so 5 minutes. And again, you don't have to use the prompt if you don't want to, but it's there for you if you do. So let's all write together for 5 minutes, starting now. All right, everyone, time is up for that sprint. Go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. If you want to share the word count you got during that sprint, or any of the figurative language that you came up with, if you use that prompt, feel free to drop it in the chat. I saw some other people were sharing. Julia Peterson had a great hyperbole from my mom. If I've told you once, I've told you a million times. Stop exaggerating. That's great. um, yeah, I also saw, let's see, a question from Joey Castile that asks, is anybody else just writing and ignoring your goal? I think I do that a lot. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it that way until you posed that question. Now I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of am. Um, but it can sometimes be freeing, and it can sometimes be like, oh wait, I'm so behind. I need to catch up. So it's a 50-50 for me whether that works, but maybe it works for you. Some more good ones here. Never Forever Cool said, felt like my whole body had been turned into a puddle of heated water as I crawled along the empty desert. Nice. What a Music Geek says, hungry enough I could even eat the table. Not even that. Make a lunch and dinner combo and have more food from the kitchen. Nice. Yeah, hungry enough to eat a table is a pretty good one. Is a pretty good hyperbole. Ooh, these are good. I got 160 words. Gentilly Lace is having computer trouble, 92 words. That's still great. Julie Peterson, 132. Estella got 173. Anna May got 194. Nice. This is great. I am curious because I saw, oh, what was it? I saw somebody in the chat. I can't remember who to scroll up now, but saying that they're a former English teacher. Storyfile says, former English teacher here. I almost never use figurative language. I struggle with not using cliches. So I'm curious how many of you tend to write a lot of like flowy, like long-winded description, like, beautiful, um, just like long passages and metaphors and similes, and how many of you are people who write like short and precise and concise and like straight to the point, um, and what you enjoy reading too, because I feel one of the things that happened with me was like I've always been one of those people that's like, oh no, I really love writing the long flowy descriptive passages. I'm not good at writing like short things and action scenes, and I hated reading Hemingway in school and all that. But then when I was working on a novel, and I was like, oh, this just isn't going anywhere. And I was reading a book, I think it was a Scott Westerfeld book, and I was like, oh, there's so much action happening here. And I was like, wait, I really enjoy reading like the kind of sharp, short to the point action scenes. Maybe I should try writing more of that. So I don't know. That was a realization that I had. I'm curious if any of you have had similar experiences. Kenny says, I do long and flowy. Sailor Star Knight says, I lean into the cliche. Humor is rife with repetition. Nice. Gentilly Lace says, I used a hyperbole, metaphor, and simile in those 92 words. Nice. Reader Rot says, I'm trash for flowery language. Yep, I feel that. Mood. um, Carrie says, robot writer over here, want more flowery language. Nice. We seem to have a lot of flowy, flowery language people over here, which I mean makes sense, you know. Okay, asked, switching to that style help? It helped me a ton, actually. The current project that I'm working on, part of what happened was I got 50 pages in, and I have a writing group that I like share pages with occasionally, and they were like, Catherine, this is, I really like these characters, but nothing is happening. And so when that clicked, when I was like, oh man, I need to make things happen, it really helped me kind of lock into the plot more, because and it helped me to do both. Like, it helped me to have those first 50 pages of just like, I'm going to really explore these characters like emotional landscapes and do all this flowery language. And to have that as a basis, even if it never makes it into the final draft, to have that as a basis when I go and be like, okay, now how do I take these characters that I know really well, and how are they going to react to these action scenes? So yeah, it was helpful for me. So I recommend trying something a little different if you're not sure where to go with a project like that. Kate also asked, do you find yourself doing that with all your stories now, or do you switch depending on the story? This was like a very recent discovery for me. This is just like in the last few months. So I've pretty much only been working on this story. I'll do a few short things. So I've been trying to do that with my like short stories and stuff as well, but haven't yet tried it on other long projects, so we'll see. Kimberly says, oh crap, they need to do something? What? I know. Man, those pesky plots sometimes. Xavier says, oh right, a plot. Let's put a plot in there. I'm glad I'm not the only one who has this problem. Slithery Lover says, I ramble so much when I'm writing. They're less long, flowy sentences than they are a bunch of useless, awkwardly placed words. I mean, that's what revision's for, right? I feel every time I write something, if I read it immediately after, I'm like, yeah, those are words. I don't know if they make sense, but usually if I let it sit for a little bit and then I go back to it later, then I'll be like, oh, actually, that does make sense. That wasn't too bad. So. Ellen says, I do write precisely, but not necessarily short. In revision, I shorten sentences. That's great. Actually, I had a professor recently who said it's better to either write super, like to overwrite in your first draft, write way too much and then cut it, or to write very short and like very sparse and then add more in. But it's really hard to do both of those at the same time on a second draft. So that's a piece of advice that I've heard. Again, haven't exactly tried to put it into action yet, but I have been trying to be aware when I'm revising of like, oh, okay, I usually need to shorten things, so let me look out for the things that I can cut. Whereas some people might be like, oh, I just wanted to get from point A to point B, so now I need to put in other things in order to get there. But Haley says, description with a side of plot. I like that. Sailor Steiner says, I have 3 chapters titled "And Then Something Happened." Yep, great. These are really great. Oh, Sid Schwartz says, I'm 20,000 words in and it's only been 24 hours in the book. I mean, it depends on what you're writing, right? Because that could work, because I think the Da Vinci Code takes place over 24 hours or something like that, right? And like that's a very fast-paced, like immersive book. So it can work to have it a short time frame be the entire span of a book. It can work, but all right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next prompt. And actually, this directly relates to the question that our English teacher had about not wanting to use cliches. Because a lot of the times when you use simile and metaphor, it can be hard to kind of avoid those cliches, avoid those phrases that have been overused and that people hear a lot and have kind of almost kind of lost their meaning, or kind of lost their punch. Um, so I wanted to share one of the one of the best pieces of writing advice that I ever got that has changed the way that I write a lot, and to do excuse me, to do a short, probably about 10-minute writing sprint based off of that. So one of the best pieces of writing advice that I ever got was to make sure that your metaphors and similes are particular to the perspective of the character or the narrator that you are writing about. So to avoid those cliches. Um, so, for example, a lot of us have probably heard the phrase butterflies in your stomach to describe being nervous, but thinking but you want to think about how you could choose a new or different phrase to describe the same feeling that is specific to your character. Um, so, for example, if your character works on a farm, maybe they say, "My stomach felt like somebody was churning butter in it." Or if it's a kid who really likes candy, maybe they say, "It felt like I'd eaten a million Pop Rocks all at once." So it kind of has that same like bubbly, fluttery, nervous feeling that you get when you hear the phrase butterflies in your stomach, but they're specific things that those characters would notice in their lives, that not like a different character wouldn't have that same connection or that same feeling. Um, so for the second prompt, I'm going to challenge you to write a scene, either a scene or just a list that includes figurative phrases that's specific to your character. So use comparisons that are unique and familiar to that character's experience and point of view. And I would say, don't forget to use all of your senses when you're thinking about these phrases. So sight, sound, touch, smell, feeling. You use them all. Use them to get really really specific with it. Um, so I'm going to put that into the chat. There we go. I'll put this also in the video description if you want to refer back to it without scrolling up in the chat. And again, you don't have to use this prompt if you don't want to, but this is something that really helped me kind of dial into how my characters are seeing the world. So I thought I'd share it with you all today. I will set my timer for 10 minutes here, so 10-minute writing sprint, and let's get started writing now. Got about 5 minutes left. We're halfway through. All right, everybody, time is up for that sprint. Go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. Again, if you want to share the word count that you got during that sprint, or if you want to share a snippet of what you wrote or how you used the prompt, feel free to put that in the chat. I'm just gonna time's up in the chat as well. Yeah, how'd that go for y'all? Hopefully this has been helpful advice. So I when I was putting this together and looking stuff over, I realized that like there are phrases and similes and metaphors and stuff that are specific to your character, but there are also ones that can be specific to you as an author. So I'm curious if any of you like know or recognize any phrases or sayings that are specific to you or to your family, or your country, or your area, your part of the world. One of the people in my writing group grew up in Australia, and they're a great writer, but sometimes they'll put in phrases or words that the rest of us are just like, what does this mean? Because we don't have that context, because we didn't grow up with those phrases that were common to that region. So yeah, I'm curious if any of you have come across similar things. Let's see here, just looking at the chat. Excuse me. Lois got 180 words. Tamar got 120. Nice. Ooh, Rita Rat says Amy had a handful of lace and Ada's stomach felt like their fluttering ends. That's great. I love that. That's a beautiful descriptor for that same feeling of like fluttery, nervous stomach, but specific to that character. Let's see, Samuel got 206 words. Storyfile says, I wasn't able to do a scene since I'm on my phone, so I made a list for each of my point of view characters. That's great. Transcriber said, I drew a complete blank. I wrote like one word. That is okay. Sometimes that's how it goes, you know? So yeah, I feel you on that. Leah said, this was great. 207 words here. 217 for Xavian. Nice. Kenny got 165. Ooh, Kate L says his name drips off her tongue, bitter like burnt crust, like begging. Wow, that's great. Let's see. Lois said the sun was the mind of God, the stained glass window a lens that channeled that mind. Wow. Man, these are great. I love this. Got some good alliteration from Joey here. Piglet the Pekingese and Pork Chop the Pomeranian pushed a purple pineapple in a pram. Don't know what a pram is? That's the British English word for a baby carriage. Nice. Sarah Allen said, didn't use the prompt because I was in the middle of the sprint. That's fine. Ooh, Xavier said he was cagey as a cornered mongrel being taunted by children. So great. Helen Porter says, I've already made my goal, so don't feel too bad about 75 words. Heck yeah. Ooh, also says, if only my stomach didn't feel like chewed up Oreos, he thought to himself as he swallowed the first one and then the second. But what's two more? I love this. These are so great. Sig got 187 words. Nice. Oh man, these are so great. I also just wanted to give a little reminder that if you have already reached your goal, don't forget to update your word count and claim your official camp win on Camp NaNoWriMo. Some of you may have already taken advantage of the offers from our sponsors that are available to all camp participants. I'll just put a link to that in the chat if you want to check those out. But the cool thing about meeting your camp goal is that you also, some of our sponsors have extra goodies for people who have met their goal. So if you want to get those, plus the like winner certificate, I think there are a couple more things, but I'm blanking on that now. But if you want to get those, make sure that you update your word count and let our website know that you've reached your goal, so that you get all those cool things. And also, if you're just feeling, if you're super behind or you're feeling like completely in despair and you're like, oh, I'm never going to make it, part of the beauty about camp is that you can change your goal at any time too. So if the goal is working for you to help push you forward and to help, get those words, then keep going with it. But if the goal is feeling like a block or like it's really insurmountable, then change it so that it works for you. Like that is the beauty of Camp NaNoWriMo. So just putting a little plug for that there. Awesome. All right, so let's see, we have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we have some good time to write, because so many of you, I feel like, are so close and are just really getting towards the end of your goals and the end of your projects. So let's take a little bit longer on this last sprint and make sure that we have some good time to write. This one we're moving away from metaphors and similes and all that good stuff for a little bit, but we're still in the English class section of it. Again, Ria put this together, and it has some great, just like going back to things that I hadn't thought about for a while. So I think it's always good to refresh your memory or learn new things. But so our last sprint is going to be about active voice versus passive voice. This is also a good thing that I need to work on a lot, even though it's something that I've heard about a lot. But it's always good to have a refresher and to remember what's going on. So if you're not familiar with these concepts, basically active voice, kind of at the most basic level, emphasizes the person or thing who is performing an action in a sentence, in a scene. So Ria included this example. I think it might be from her work. I'm not sure, but it's a great example. So I'm gonna keep it. But the example of an active voice is: Alia screamed as the waves engulfed her. Her lungs constricted as she struggled to breathe. Would this be where she dies? Will her family ever know what happened? So that's active, and you can usually see that most by looking at the verbs that are used. Screamed, engulfed, constricted, struggled, like those are all very, very active, very like specific verbs. And then the passive voice is something that we usually want to avoid a little bit more, because it puts some of that distance and has less urgency in what you're reading. So an example, if you took that last passage and made it passive, would be: the crashing waves caused Alia to scream. Her inability to breathe stressed her lungs. She felt hopeless. So usually you can look out for words like was or had or felt. Sometimes those, not always, but sometimes those words kind of indicate like, oh, this is more of a passive thing rather than an active thing. So that's a very brief overview, brief crash course. Some of you may have other examples or knowledge about this, but for the last sprint, let's just focus on writing active descriptions that truly step into your character's mind, body, and soul. And if you want to, try to avoid using words that usually pop up in passive descriptions, such as was or had or felt, which can be a little more difficult. But again, okay, so let's do 12 minutes for this last sprint, and I will put the prompt in the chat. Again, you don't have to use it, but it's there for you if you want to. So 12 minutes for this last sprint, and let's start writing now. Got about 4 more minutes left in this prompt. All right, and that's time on that sprint. So go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. Again, if you want to share anything in the chat or the word count that you got during that sprint or during the entire hour as a whole, if you met your Camp NaNoWriMo goal during this virtual write-in, feel free to put that in and let us know. I was scrolling back up through the chat through some of that and just seeing so many good examples and snippets of people's writing. I always love seeing what you guys share because it makes me want to immediately read these books that you're writing. It's so good. So yeah. I guess we're at time. These things kind of they always fly by for me. So I hope that this was really helpful for you. I hope that you're feeling good going into the last few days of NaNoWriMo and or Camp NaNoWriMo. And yeah, I just good luck with everything that you're writing and everything that you're doing. Um, yeah. Oh, Ellen Porter says they got negative words during that sprint, took a bunch of hads and wases out. So that's great. Honestly, negative words when you're editing is a pretty good thing to happen. So Leia got 636 words total in this session. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. Yay, I'm so glad. Eagles Fly High got 761. Gentilly Lace got 273 for the sprint, 493 total for today. Awesome. Transcriber got 167, still way behind where I should be on my goal, but it was an ambitious goal to begin with. That's great. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, go for it if you think you can do it. I believe in you. So yeah, ambitious goals can be very good to work on. Yay! Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that people were finding this helpful. Oh, Misty Kate asked, is this the last write-in? This is the last write-in probably for a little while. We'll still be having, I'll drop a link into our events calendar on the NaNoWriMo site that we'll be updating as we add more things. So this will be the last kind of regular write-in on YouTube for a while. But we still have some Zoom events coming up. Tomorrow, we have the NaNoWriMo community Zoom hang, just like a meetup, a hangout. So it's kind of like this, except more people are on screen. You get to talk more directly to folks in small groups. And that will also be featuring camp counselor Lisa Stringfellow, who's a published author. So we'll do a Q&A with her. So if you have any questions about writing or publishing that you want to ask her, you can do that. We'll also be doing some writing sprints and some conversation similar to this. But so that's tomorrow. And then I think we have another yoga for writers session scheduled also for Zoom in a couple of weeks. So there's some other stuff going on, but these write-ins on YouTube we'll probably start them up again in about mid-September. So taking a little bit of a break, getting ready for the fall. And then we will be back in about a month and a half, probably. So yeah, keep an eye out. And I will write myself a note. I will absolutely make sure to get Blobby, because if I don't, you guys will kill me. But yeah, so thank you for joining today. And yeah, I might see you at some other events. Otherwise, I'll see you when these virtual write-ins start back up in about a month or so. So thank you everybody for joining today, and good luck on your writing. I hope you have a great time. And